This next video is about biomolecules. Think about the word biology. Biology is the study of life. Biomolecules are the molecules that make up living organisms. Each biomolecule contains 3 elements that you must have: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. There are 2 other elements that you'll find in some of the biomolecules, which are nitrogen and phosphorus. The 4 biomolecules are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. We'll go into each of those into detail. Here's what you need to know about biomolecules. The process of making a biomolecule is called polymerization, which is a big word that just means to make things out of small pieces. There's one thing that I want you to keep in mind. Mono means one, poly means many. So let's look at a monomer. This is one small piece that then makes a polymer. So we'll go ahead and put mono inside of it. Now I'm going to draw a few more that adds more monomers to the chain. Each of these is a monomer, but together they make a polymer. It often helps to remember things, to draw them. So if you have a piece of paper nearby, or you want to go get one, grab a piece of paper and go ahead and draw this. Write then also that mono equals 1, poly equals many, just like a polygon. All of the biomolecules are made of different pieces. So I want you to think about what makes a brick wall different from a pearl necklace. They're made of different things. A brick wall is made of bricks. A pearl necklace is made of pearls. So if we think about those, the pearls and the bricks, as being the monomers, and the wall and the necklace as being the polymer, then we realize, oh, it's the monomers, those pieces, the structure that makes them have a different function. So structure is, what does it look like? What is it made of? Function is, what does it do? So we're going to look at those elements and also the structure and function of each of the next biomolecules. There are a couple words that you might hear that people use to refer to biomolecules. They are organic molecules and macromolecules. Organic just means naturally occurring in life, and macromolecules just means large molecules. It's the opposite of micro, which is really tiny. The first biomolecule we're going to talk about is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates also go by a couple other nicknames. They are polysaccharides, or starches, or sugar. So if you hear either of those words, know that that just means carbohydrate. So first we're going to start off and look at the structure of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are made of 3 elements: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. No other ones, just those 3. Carbohydrates are in a ring formation as either a hexagon or a pentagon. The carbon comprises the corners. Now we're going to talk about the monomers of carbohydrates, which are called monosaccharides. Now think back to what the other nickname for carbohydrates is: polysaccharides, which just means many saccharides. Saccharide, I want you to think of as meaning sugar. So mono, remember, means one. Saccharide means sugar. So monosaccharide means one sugar. When I put these together through the process of polymerization, that then makes a polysaccharide, or a starch. So I want you to think about a cracker. This is something that you can do at home as like a little experiment to kind of make it a little bit more fun for yourself. It's a little challenging, but I think you can do it. Take a cracker like a saltine. I want you to think of this. This is going to be our carbohydrate, which is a starch. When you chew the cracker, it does not taste sweet at all, even though it's made of sugar. The longer that you have the cracker in your mouth, a process called hydrolysis happens, which breaks down the starch into its monomers, which are sugars. If you have enough self-control to do this, you can keep the cracker in your mouth long enough to make that process happen and it to break down, and the cracker will eventually start to taste sweet, which is pretty cool. Carbohydrates are our polysaccharides. That cracker that's been sitting in your mouth for how long now? Hopefully just a couple minutes, has now turned into sugar through the process of hydrolysis. So think about this. Hydrolysis is using water to break down the polysaccharide. Hydro, water, lysis, to break down. So I'm going to use this blue marker to represent water. Droplets coming in to break down these polymers into its pieces. This is why the polysaccharide ends up tasting like sugar, because now the monomers are free and the monomers are sugar. So think back to polymerization. Depolymerization is the opposite. So if polymerization is making a polymer, depolymerization is breaking that polymer down. In this case, it's called hydrolysis. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the function of carbohydrates. And remember, carbohydrates, another word for that is polysaccharide. I want you to think about the S in polysaccharide, monosaccharide, sugar, starch. All of those S's are going to help you to remember what the function is. The function of carbohydrates is that they store short-term energy. This is why athletes will eat a whole bunch of pasta or bread or things like that before they run a marathon. It's because they need that short-term energy for their muscles as they exercise. We're going to talk about lipids. Other names for lipids are triglycerides, or unsaturated fats, saturated fats, or phospholipids. They contain 3 elements: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, just like carbohydrates. But instead of them being arranged in a ring shape, they are in long chains. So when we think about lipids, we're going to think about the letter L. L for long chains and lipids. The monomer of lipids is a little bit different from carbohydrates. They're made of 2 parts, a glycerol head and fatty acid tails. So you can kind of remember it as like a rotund person with little tiny legs. You can also think about the G in glycerol head as being grease. So lipids leave a greasy stain on things. Like think about when you leave Cheetos on a paper towel. You lift them up, they leave a grease stain, and that's because of the lipid in the Cheeto. The polymer of a lipid is going to be a triglyceride. Triglycerides are made out of a glycerol head and 3 fatty acid tails, just like that. So lipids are found in grease, wax, cell membranes, butter, fats, things like that. Anything that's greasy or waxy and it doesn't mix with water. This was what brings us to our next point, which is the function of a lipid. Lipids are so great at being a cell membrane because they don't mix with water. And so a cell membrane is the thin lining on the outside of a cell. So every cell in your body has a cell membrane made out of lipids. The lipids help to keep what is inside of the cell from mixing with what's outside of the cell, and it acts as a wonderful barrier. Just like the wax on the outside of an apple keeps the water from the inside of the apple inside and water from the outside outside. Another aspect of the function of a lipid is that it is used for long-term energy storage. Go back and think about that. L, lipids. They're long and they have long-term energy storage. The next biomolecule is protein. Protein is going to be a molecule that's really important to your body. Protein is made out of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Nitrogen is the new element. The other 2 had carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Nitrogen is new. So I want you to think about the word protein. It ends with an N. Nitrogen starts with an N. So that's how you can kind of remember it. Now another word for protein is polypeptide. And the great thing about that is polypeptide has a lot of P's in it, just like protein starts with a P. So polysaccharide, sugar, carbohydrate. Polypeptide, protein. You might want to write that down so that you can visualize that for yourself. Protein is found in meat, eggs, nuts, seeds, things like that. Enzymes are also protein, and enzymes are very important to your body because they help the body to run more efficiently. This is also going to save energy so that your body can run when it needs to run, or so that you can think when you need to think. So enzymes help to maintain homeostasis. By the way, homeostasis is the maintenance of balance. The monomer of a protein is called an amino acid, not to be confused with nucleic acids. Amino acids are going to be the little pieces that are put together to make the protein. This is also going to be what creates their shape, which gives them their function. The shape of the protein is really important to its function. If you change the shape, you change what it does. So heat will change the shape. So will acidity. Proteins are made in the ribosomes of cells. It's really important for you to remember this, and the way that you can remember it is that when you eat ribs at a barbecue restaurant, ribs are meat, right? Not the actual bone, but the meat on the rib. And meat is protein. So ribosomes, rib, meat, protein. Now let's talk about nucleic acids, the last biomolecule on our list. Examples of nucleic acids are DNA and RNA. The great thing about them is that they have the word nucleic acid inside of their name. Deoxyribonucleic acid is DNA, and RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. These both contain 5 elements, all 5 of them: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and the new element is phosphorus. It is the only biomolecule that contains phosphorus. You can kind of think about it because a P looks really similar to a D. I don't know if that helps, but it might. The monomer of a nucleic acid is called a nucleotide, which is great because it sounds like the word nucleus, which is the center of the cell, which contains the DNA. The nucleotide is made up of 3 parts: sugar, phosphate, and a nitrogen base. The great thing about that is this is also where the elements come from. Sugar is made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, which is our carbohydrate. Then the nitrogen base is where the nitrogen is, obviously, and then the phosphate is where we find the phosphorus. A tip to remember when you think of nucleic acids is this. Na stands for nucleic acid. The polymer of a nucleic acid is DNA and RNA. Remember, Na, nucleic acid. The major function of a nucleic acid is to provide the genetic information for the cell. This is then again kept in the nucleus of the cell, and it controls what the cell does, what it looks like, all that good stuff. If you change the DNA, that's going to change the structure or function of the organism. So if I change one of the parts of the DNA, it could change the eye color or the personality of the organism. So, in conclusion, the 4 biomolecules are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. There's a chart that is inside of the folder on Edmodo called Biomolecules that has all of them listed and all of the important information that you need to know about biomolecules. I would suggest that you either copy it or print it out so that you can study it. Another strategy to help yourself to be successful in answering any kind of test questions that might be related to biomolecules is to identify the word associations that you can find between the words related to biomolecules. For example, I know that biomolecule means organic molecule and macromolecule. I also know that anytime I see the word carbohydrate, that means that it's also a polysaccharide, monosaccharide, starch, sugar, short-term energy, right? Remember all of those S's? The words associated with lipids are going to be phospholipids, fats, grease, wax, and they're also going to be used for long-term energy storage and the cell membrane. Proteins are associated with the words polypeptide, amino acids, and also providing structure and function and enzymes. The words associated with nucleic acids are DNA, RNA, genetic material, and also nucleotides, their monomer. And that's it.